We'll start this meeting, call this meeting to order. The Ellettsville Town Council, Monday, November 9th, 2020. Mike, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jimmy, will you lead us in prayer?
Yes, sir. You'll bow with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you just one more time and ask for many blessings on this little town that we serve. We ask that you give these councilmen and women a clear mind tonight that they can make those decisions that will be blessing to you. We ask you to be with those that are sick and in sorrow, those who lost loved ones, and those that are suffering through this pandemic. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, Sandy, roll call.
Dan Swafford.
Here.
Scott Oldham. William Ellis.
Here.
Trevor Sager.
Here.
Pamela Samples.
Here.
Okay, first thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes and the work session October 19th, 2020 and regular meeting October 26th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Okay, Scott has just joined us. Okay, Sandy, roll call.
Dan Swafford.
Yes.
Scott Oldham.
Yes.
William Ellis.
Yes.
Trevor Sager.
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next thing, action to pay accounts payable, vouchers, and payroll. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Seeing none. Sandy, roll call, please.
Dan Swafford.
Yes.
Scott Oldham.
Yes.
William Ellis.
Yes.
Trevor Sager.
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, first resolution is resolution 24-2020, transfer of funds, workman compensation. Is this Sandy?
Yes. We had quite an increase in our workers' compensation cost for this year. Unfortunately, that comes to us in October and November of each year, and it's hard to plan in June a year ahead to make sure we have enough, but we had some losses this year and our cost went up quite a bit. We were able to cover it though within the budgets by moving some money around, and so that's what this is for. Planning moved some and so did fire, and this covers everybody and we'll be fine.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-2020, transfer of funds for workers' compensation.
Second.
Motion and Scott second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Sandy, roll call?
Dan Swafford.
Yes.
Scott Oldham.
Yes.
William Ellis.
Yes.
Trevor Sager.
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Next resolution 25-2020 to dispose of surplus property, fire, Toshiba phones, and PBX system. Is this Mike?
Hello. Yes, it is. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we have a new phone system. We went to a voice over internet protocol phone system, and the Toshiba phone system that we had was having some issues, and it was 15 years old. It was our original phone system, and it looks like on the market, it might go for as much as $300-400. There were some going higher, and the law says that if you think it's going to be over $500, you need to declare it surplus property. And we do, if you approve it tonight, we plan to do this on eBay.
Okay. And Mike, there's no further use for this at any other town area or?
That's correct. I did check with everyone, and everybody's phones are in pretty good shape.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve this property being surplused from the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, Cindy, roll call?
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, ordinances on first reading, ordinance 2020-26, the 2021 salary ordinance. Sandy?
Well, as we discussed at budget time, we followed the median wage for all the positions for 2021 of the wage study that we had done. And this salary ordinance reflects those changes.
Any further discussion? Any public comments? Seeing none, we will move on. No ordinances on second reading, old business, 2020 supplemental fire service agreement amendment.
Yeah, that's me again. So
Yep.
this is a project based upon the need to replace a 1990 fire engine. And the township trustee has always helped us in the past to buy capital equipment, usually through the contract, a few times outside the contract, but this time it's a big purchase. And so what we want to do is, so for the total price of the fire engine, the project is $623,000. And to lower the amount of money that we'll need to borrow, the trustee has given us $55,000 this year. I mean, that's the first amendment you see in front of you, to lower it, to add $55,000 so we can start buying some of the miscellaneous equipment that's required for the apparatus. And then the second part that you have on the agenda is to amend the 2021, where he will actually make the payments. He is purchasing the truck with all of township money. We are just the people in the middle to acquire it, bid it out. And the first thing on the agenda would be to start the process by amending the current fire service agreement so he can pay us $55,000. His township advisory board did approve that about a week ago. Now it needs to come to the board for approval or rejection.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
Mike, are you spending more than that, what you're spending in duct tape and paper clips to keep that truck together? I mean, it's had a good run, hasn't it?
It has a good run. It's an excellent truck. However, it is 30 years old. In fact, another department used it for almost 2 weeks. So we loaned it out one time, or more than once, but once they used it for almost 2 weeks. But at some point in time, it's starting to add up expenses. Most recently, a $4,000 brake system we had to put on it. We're going to use this truck for at least a year. So we got to cap brakes. So yes, its time has come. It served us well.
And what happens after? I mean, is there like a fire truck graveyard or something that's?
Yeah, there is. There are collectors, especially for our type of apparatus. And there's also several companies that deal in used fire apparatus. And I would suggest that it would go anywhere between $5,000 and $25,000. It just depends how bad somebody needs it. It's in good enough shape for a smaller department starting out or something to use. So.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Now, do we want one motion for both contracts or a motion for each, Darla?
I would prefer a motion for each.
Thank you.
So let's do the first one. Is there a motion on the first? amendment?
I make a motion to amend the 2020 supplemental fire service agreement.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Sandy, roll call?
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So for the next thing is basically continuing on with the project. We've already signed the 2021 agreement, so now we need to amend it to add his payment, which he added into that, and his advisory board has approved this as well.
Okay, is there a motion for the 2021 supplemental fire service agreement amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any council comment? Any public comment? Sandy, roll call?
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. And when are you planning on purchasing the truck?
Well, if all goes well, we will probably order it before the end of the year, this year,
Okay.
to get the best prices. So
And how long does it take to come in? Just
anywhere from 7 months to 1 year.
Do we have to have it painted special and all the striping and?
Oh no, it's called fire truck blue. It's a common color.
Because of Ellettsville, right?
You betcha.
Common color where?
There are other light blue trucks around. So.
Ellettsville.
Yeah.
So does Dan get to ride in it first and
Sure.
use the siren?
So are you saying
$20-some thousand, you can do what you want.
So you're saying you want me to be Santa next year then, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Just keep your pants up.
Yep. Oh, goodness. Let's not even go there. Okay. The flood report. Christopher.
That would be.
Go ahead,
That would
Mike.
be. Oh, I'm sorry. Michael Farmer, and I've asked this to be on the agenda. This is a proposal for professional engineering services related to Jackson Creek. Basically, a flood study has been done, and now we need a set of plans to allow us to do area improvements around Main Street and some Vine Street shelving that should mitigate some of the flooding that occurs in downtown Ellettsville. We've asked Christopher Burke Engineering to give us a proposal. Originally, they give us a proposal for, I believe it was $56,800. Since the original proposal, we have added another piece of property that basically extends the project for about 30% more along the Jackson Creek bank. And with that, there is extra work to be done. And so they had to revise their proposal. And so now they have a new proposal in front of us for $73,700. So, as I said, with the new property that we can work with, we have a plan that increases the amount of property that we can improve for flood mitigation by 30%, and that's an approximate amount. And so this is a new proposal for $73,700. So if we are to move forward, I need the town board's approval to assign this to Christopher Burke to proceed.
Mike, what account is this coming out of?
Questions?
What account is this coming out of?
Storm sewer. We have approximately $143,000 in unused funds in the storm sewer account. And so this would take about half of the money, and that's what we would use.
Okay. And this is just for engineering for the plans. It doesn't include work or?
No, it doesn't include work. And as I've said before, we intend to do most of the work in-house with utility and street department crews under the Department of Public Works. And so there will be material costs associated with plans. Once we have the plans, that will allow me to quantify just exactly what the material costs would be. And that would I'd bring back before the board. And then when you said proceed, we would.
Okay. And one other question. Did we put this out for bid, or does this have to be put out for bid?
Darla?
This is a service, so this does not have to be put out for bid.
Okay.
Municipalities are allowed to retain services by any method that they find reasonable. So now, obviously, when you go to building or doing the structural work, you will have to bid that out. So the cleanup and all of that you're going to do to do the flood remediation, when you do the shelving, that's going to have to be bid out likely. So.
Okay. Thank you, Darla. Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, I have a question. Mike?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me,
Yeah.
Mike? Okay, that other property you're talking about, so where did that come into play? I mean, like, how much is that property going to cost us?
It's GL Chandler owns the property, and I spoke to him a couple times about this as recent as a week ago, and he is on board to provide us with the easement and an agreement that would allow us to utilize that property. And all he's asking is along the road that there be left enough parking for a few parking lots or few parking spaces on the creek side of Vine Street. That's not going to be a problem because there is utility infrastructure, water, power, and Smithville has ducts and pipe work that go along the north side of Vine Street. So there'll be plenty of room to leave so he can be allowed to have some parking spaces. So we've worked out some of the details, and he is willing to donate the property to help mitigate flooding, which will help his business.
Okay.
And Mike, we discussed this too. Are you going to ask the engineering firm to put an amendment in there for parking all along that whole stretch of property?
Well, we'll just, I mean, they can't come right up to Vine Street anyway. So the shelving will start way clear of Vine Street and 20 or 30 feet towards the creek. So that's just really, it's a detail. It'll have to be part of the plan, but it's not, you know, it's not a stumbling block or a hurdle that we'll have to get over. I mean, it's like I said, there's a good chance that we'll replace the 12-inch water main prior to the work beginning. Currently, it is 1970. I'm guessing at the date. 1970 water main. It's cast iron. We've had a few main breaks over the past 20 years along that stretch, and it's one of the few runs of 12-inch pipe that originally served all of Ellettsville, and it's in need of replacement, so we'll replace it with ductile iron pipe, and so we'll have to have that easement free and clear so in case we never have to work on even the ductile, and so it's just not going to be a problem. I mean, it works out perfectly, actually.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the contract between ourselves and Burke Engineering for this phase of the project.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion second. Any council questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, Sandy, roll call.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, down to new business. Utility request purchase a new, 2015 Kenworth Vector truck. Mike, I'm assuming this is you.
It is. After we had built the sewer plant in 1997, it was finished. It was my first year working here, and some of the work designated after the plant was built allowed us some extra money, and we bought a Vector at that time to clean our sewer system, and we actually used it for Eastern Richland Sewer Corporation for many years as well. It is a 1997 Vector sewer rotter. It's a combo machine. It can suck up debris as well as jet rod the sewers. We've used it for the last 20 years, and we have logged about approximately 1 million feet of sewers cleaned and root cut. The sewers, the jet rotter is 23 years old, and it's getting to the point where we're not as efficient as we used to be with this machine. There's new technology out now that makes the newer machines a lot more efficient. They're just stronger. They have double pump systems now. The potholing device that is a standard tool on the machines these days are superior to what we have. And so anyway, we have been looking to buy a new jet rotter for probably the last 5 years, and we've put it off as long as we can. A new jet rotter would cost $500,000, and that is an approximate amount of money. You can get them for $450,000, and you can get them for $675,000. So it's just whatever you buy. We don't think that we can afford to buy a new one, and the company, Jack Doheny, out of Indianapolis, that we've always used to maintain our jet rotter, has a trade-in from, I believe it's Greenwood, that's not very old, and we have a chance to buy a 2015 Vector combo sewer rotter for $210,000. We propose to buy this machine and then put up our machine for auction, and we'd like your permission to move forward.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for utilities to purchase a 2015 Kenworth Vector truck.
Second.
Motion and second. Any council comment or questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, Sandy, roll call.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next under new business, new utility maintenance building land preparation. Mike?
Yes, the last thing I have tonight is getting approval from the board to move forward with site preparation for a new maintenance building. I think after our work session and individual conversations I've had with some of the board members, I think everyone's on board to prepare the original site that we propose that is, I don't know how to describe it, except at the end of the gravel drive behind the town hall. The most important thing about the site that we prepare for me is it is on our property, and it is out of sight of the town hall and some future considerations we have for parks and recreation. And it should be noted that we will have to clear cut quite a few trees to prepare the site.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make the motion that we approve the site selection and preparation as delineated by Mr. Farmer for the construction of the utility building.
I will second.
Motion and second. Any council comment or questions? Actually, Mike, I do have one. What was the cost of this? Are we doing it in-house except for the clearing? Right?
No. Actually, the cutting of the trees, we'll prepare a request for proposal. We'll get at least 3 quotes for the removal of the trees, and we do believe that that there's enough timber that's valuable on the property to, at the very least, come out without having to pay for the clearing. Once we have those proposals in hand, we'll come to you, you'll approve them, and hopefully I'm correct about what I just said about it being cost neutral. And if it's not, then I'll present and you guys can decide. But we do believe there's quite a bit of timber that's valuable enough that it may be cost neutral to have it cleared.
And we are just clearing the side of the building, not the entire lot, correct?
Yeah, well, it's the building and the phone hub, for lack of a better term, where we keep pipes and other pieces of equipment that surrounds the building. But I assure you, we will not clear not one extra inch that we unless we have to.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any further comments from the council? Any public comment? Seeing none, Sandy, roll call.
Ann Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mike. All right, next on the new business, COVID personnel policy. Is this Darla or?
I can start if you want. I had asked Sandy to put this on the agenda because I think some issues or some questions have come up, in particular with regard to what restrictions, if any, an employer can put on an employee's travel. So in other words, can the town suggest that employees not travel to certain hotspots if the employees do, and I'm talking about obviously what they do on their off time. If they do, can the town require them to quarantine afterwards, and questions of that nature that are coming up. So I asked Sandy to put this on the agenda to get the town council's thoughts on this, so that I could, if you wanted me to, draft a personnel policy amendment that would discuss how to handle this. And there are a number of ways to do that, obviously, if you want to. If someone travels to a hotspot and they come back, you can change their schedules. You can reassign them so that they're not around the other employees, or they're around the other employees as little as possible. You can require them to get COVID tests when an employee comes back from a hotspot. The town has to pay for the test, and the town also has to pay for the employee's time to go get the test. You can require an employee to quarantine, but if you do, You can also ask them to use their PTO time. So those are just some ideas I had.
So, Darla, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, again, with the travel and with other things, it's my understanding that as long as the town continues to pay the employee and the employee doesn't suffer a loss, as it were, doesn't suffer any type of action against them, that we can require them to quarantine in excess of whatever. As long as they're getting paid, it doesn't really matter how long they're off work. Say they have exposure that we know about, that we become aware of, that they've been exposed to someone with COVID, or they themselves have come down with it. At some point, we may decide that we want them off for an extended period of time. And as I get it, we can do that as long as they're not suffering a loss from it. Is that not correct?
Well, I think you can pay them, but I also think there's some authority out there that would suggest that you don't have to pay them. You can require them to use their PTO time when they come back. Obviously, if they've been exposed to COVID, or they have a test result, or they're under some order somewhere from some entity saying they have to stay home, then they qualify for the 14 days extra pay under the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act.
Right. But say we know that there's an exposure, or say for whatever reason the employee wants to return to work, but we don't want them back at work because of that exposure just yet. We can hold them off as long as we don't force them into burning their own PTO time. We're okay. Is that correct?
Well, I would want to look into that, because I do have some questions about whether or not the town can just go ahead and pay them for not working because they took a vacation if there's no COVID issues.
No, and I'm not necessarily relating it to a vacation. A good example is, and not to get too in depth because we're dancing around it, at some of the schools, there have been known exposures.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter to the school what you have a doctor's note saying that I'm testing negative. They don't care. You're out for 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
So is it not similar for us that if we determine that there's a risk to the general workforce, they don't have to come back and we can continue to pay them?
That would be something I would have to look into for you. But yes, the employer is supposed to generally take the attitude that they're protecting the other employees from exposure when they develop whatever policy they develop.
Right. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And the 14 days, is that consecutive days, or is that a calendar year, or what is the 14 days?
The 14 days that I referred to comes from the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, which ordered all employers, at least through the end of the year, to provide 14 days of sick leave to employees. And there was a whole list of people who qualify. If you've been exposed to COVID, if you have COVID, if you're under a doctor's order to stay home, and I forget what else is on the list. If the employee fits into any one of those categories, the town would be required to give them 14 paid sick leave for 14 days, or I think 80 hours is the way that.
And that's for the year's time though, right?
Right. That's 14 days or 80 hours, period.
Till the end of the year.
From now, well, from whenever it was passed through December 31st, unless it's renewed by Congress.
That's only what we're required to do. We're able to.
Correct.
This is Michael Farmer. So I asked Darla to bring this up because back in March, there was not that many incidents, not very many decisions to be made. And so it was pretty easy to start out with, but as we've moved forward, more people are involved with COVID-related problems. I've been asked to decide how to do this and do that. And so not my fear, but what I'm concerned about is how do we protect the employee? How do we protect the rest of the working staff when there is an incident? And how do we ensure that we have a working staff to keep the town running. And it's tricky, and everybody's got an answer, and some of them are different from others, and the science changes, and the requirements changes, and there's an article in the paper not too long ago. It was an opinion where somebody said, why don't everybody admit they just don't know? And that happens a lot, even with the science of it all. And so the COVID's out there, and it's tricky to deal with. And so I need some parameters. The department head needs to know exactly what to do, but they also need to know that they can veer off course, because this is not a straight line. There's not a straight line answer on how to handle this. And so moving forward, we would like to know, the department heads and myself would like to know, what does the board think? What do they want to do? What do they want to take into account, whether it's personal or it's the business of keeping our town running? And it's a daily event now. There's always something to talk about. And the first hour or two of my day, I get a COVID-related question, call, concern, or we have some sort of hit, and that means somebody that was exposed or this and that and the other. So it's troublesome, and I would like some support and direction from the board.
The school has a policy that, I mean, if you are directly exposed, you have to quarantine for 14 days. If you've proven positive, you have to wait only 10 days, and then I guess you're considered to be safe. We don't have anything in writing to even tell our employees when it's safe for them to come back to work. I mean, we can follow the CDC guidelines, but it'd be nice to have a written policy so it's all down. We know exactly what the rules are, and we can treat everybody fair and equal.
Well, I think with everything going on, I mean, this is definitely something that we need to work on. I'm not quite sure how, if we want to work it out at the council meeting, or if you guys want to work on it individually and then come back to the council with some guidelines, or I really don't know how to proceed from here. What's the council's privilege? I mean,
well, I think part of the issue we have is that you've got what to do about people who test positive. You got what to do about people who have been exposed but aren't yet testing positive. And then you've got the overall protection of the workforce. Again, and take police and fire out of it because they're a little bit different animals. If we start talking about utilities, or if we start talking about street or public works as a whole, you know, we're getting into the winter season. So at a certain point, you've got to have some ability to protect the manpower asset and not put everybody together. I mean, a good example is, you know, we get the guys, one of them gets exposed, doesn't know, and all of a sudden they've infected the entire street department, the entire utilities department, and now everybody's on the shelf. Well, who's running the plant and who's plowing the snow? I mean, we've got to have some ability to, I guess, put firewalls in place, you know, personnel-wise, so that not everybody gets exposed and we're left with enough people to work the town. Police is pretty easy because they don't work the same shift. They're coming and going. Fire, a little more difficult, but again, Mike helped me out here. They're divided by 24 hours on different shifts. So at least there's some of that going on. With utilities, public works as a whole, that's a real big problem because they're all here all the time. So as I see it, we've got three distinct problems, notwithstanding any CDC guidelines or anything else, because we don't have 100 of these folks. We've got very few capable of doing this, and it has to be done. So we need to come up with at least a framework for Mike to work under for all the departments, because that's a crucial skill set, both of those, that we can't do without.
and I agree, Scott. So, I mean, do you think a work session, or do you think we should let the department heads and Mike and Darla work it out and then come back to us, or how do you want to proceed? how would you like to proceed, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I'd like to see Mike generate a policy because, no offense to department heads, I think it needs to be uniform across the board for the entire town. And then have Mike present it either through email or through whatever else for either our concurrence or our objections. I mean, clearly Darla's going to have to weigh in here to make sure that we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, as it were. But again, those three categories to me really just stand out as areas that we've got to effort pretty quickly, because COVID is making its second run again, or its third run, depending. But now we're faced with other issues about to emerge that we can't do without these folks.
I'm sorry, Dan.
Go ahead, William.
I think Mike should spearhead it, but I think it's crucial that he gets that policy with input from the department heads, because there might be some nuances that even Mike is as talented as they come as the town manager. There may be some creative things that they've talked about within the departments.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it seem like I wanted it done in a vacuum. I'm just thinking that it ought to be a overarching canopy through the whole town, not just
right. We don't need 15 different plans.
Yeah.
So you're saying basically let's develop the policy, let them develop it, and then have Mike make the calls that are like loopholes in the policy?
Well, I think the policy needs to be uniform across the board for the entire town.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think Mike gets that impact and says, how do we make this uniform that can apply to everybody?
Yeah. And I feel like if they get together with a work session, that they could come up with something. I mean, Mike, how do you feel about it?
Well, my intent is definitely. In fact, we have a department head meeting tomorrow. We usually have one once a month. And my intent is to utilize the department head with their experience, and especially their experience within their departments, to be able to plug all the holes where there's going to be a problem that's unique to their departments, and come up with something that's uniform in nature, but allows for flexibility so each department can adapt to the rules and still function.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. So can you, in the department head meeting, then kind of draw this up and then run it past Darla, make sure everything's legit, and then kind of bring it back to us?
Yes. And I think what we'll do is a draft, and a lot of times the best way, to be successful with something like this is bring the drafts together and then present to you informally through email, and then allow you to comment, update, correct, change any way you want. And, if you have a target to shoot at, then it'll allow you to, have the board, I'm sure, will have something to say about this. And because we present something, it'll probably allow for that creativity and improvement on whatever we present. So, I mean, we just need to start the process so everybody can have their chance at redlining or adding to whatever we present.
Sure. Does any of the other council members have any questions?
I've got a quick question for Darla, probably. You talked about the hot spots, Darla. Where is there some sort of revolving, rotating list where we can see those, or sort of department heads can see?
Well, the only dashboard that, well, I shouldn't say the only, but probably the best one is the one that the CDC puts out. And the problem with that is the hotspot's going to change from time to time, right, obviously. So it might be, a few weeks ago, it was Montana and Minnesota and places like that. And tomorrow it might be New York or Florida again. So I don't know how easy it's going to be to craft a policy, but I do know that there are some employers and organizations that are having their employees sign waivers, or not waivers, but travel advisories in which the employer asks the employee to acknowledge that they've traveled to a hotspot, they may be required to quarantine upon return. Now, how those employers are defining the hotspot, I don't know, other than looking at the CDC dashboard, or, you know, Indiana has a dashboard too, the Department of Health. But like I said, that's going to change. So, I mean, what I hear the council telling me is they may not be really interested in having a policy with regard to vacations. It's just more if you test for it or if you've been exposed, period. However, whether you got it from your family at Thanksgiving or whether, you know, you got it on the beach in Florida, either way, here's what we're going to do if you test positive. So that's what I'm kind of hearing everybody tell me, but if I'm not hearing you correctly, tell me. So
Mike, can I ask a favor though while you're formulating this policy? It's just my paranoia, I guess, but can you work in somehow to where, and I don't know how you're going to do it specifically, whether it's putting people on different rotations where they're only working some days a week or whatever else, or however you choose to do it, where we don't have all the utilities, all the public works people at the same place at the same time, so that if we do have an exposure, it doesn't run rampant through the whole group?
Yes. I mean, that's one of my fears is as we enter into January and February, it's not uncommon for any crews in any town to be holed up waiting for the main break or the snow to fly, and they do maintenance in their buildings, and we do not have large enough facilities to maintain the distance that we need. So it's one of my concerns, and it's something that will be addressed.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's just, again, I don't mean to single anybody out. It's just, I know police and fire have already been working under these premises for months now and distancing for that exact reason. And, you know, not to put a damper on anything, but there's just a certain point where there's certain people you just can't do without.
Right. I mean, who knew that building a new maintenance building that's more spacious would be so important in today's world. But indeed, if we had a larger facility, some of my concerns are of them being together for extended periods of time during severe and inclement weather, especially in January and February. And who knew that a spacious building would be so important to the health of our crews? So yeah, that's one of my big concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? How about supervisors? Would anyone like to chime in? Okay, seeing none. So we look forward to you guys working together on this. And Darla, your comments you made, to me, I have trouble telling people where they can and cannot vacation. I'm sorry, I have trouble with that. So I think what you said is basically what I'm looking at too. So, all right, moving on, privilege of the floor. Anyone have any non-agenda items they would like to? Okay, seeing none, we will move to supervisors' comments. Mike Farmer, anything else?
Yes, I'd just like to call out to all our employees for working through all this COVID thing and still getting the job done, take care of Ellettsville, particularly in the last couple of weeks. Street department's been doing their leafing that makes our community look so nice after the leaves all fall. They've been doing all their leafing and they've been working really hard at it. So kudos to them. And the utilities department, we've had several main breaks and they've all been in the middle of the night, which is pretty normal for main break. And so they've been out all night, quite a few nights. And we've got some real nice video of Old Faithfuls, a couple places. So they've been working hard as well. So my hat's off to the street and utility department.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Kornman.
I'm good, thanks.
Kevin.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Denny's.
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to bring to your attention, the next meeting, I'll be bringing to you a transfer from full-time to part-time for one of my officers. And also I want to bring on a new part-time officer. I'm getting with Sandy tomorrow, and this week we'll work out the parameters on how we handle that and how we do that. But I'll get some information out before the next meeting. Just wanted to give you all a heads up that we're going to make a few changes here. Nothing major, just a few adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Denny Stockup.
I'm good.
Okay. Sandy, do you have anything?
Just we're going to have an informational Zoom tomorrow concerning insurance. If anyone can join in, please do.
All righty. And last thing, council comment. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Sandy, roll call.
Ann Swafford,
Yes.
Scott Oldham,
Yes.
William Ellis,
Yes.
Trevor Sager,
Yes.
Pamela Samples.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 7:21.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, folks.